So thank you so much, folks, for tuning in with us today. Of course, we are here to learn about and chat about the Bachelor of Arts in Justice Studies program. We have some wonderful folks who are here with us today. My name is Ariana Kinjerski. I'm an education specialist at Royal Roads. I'm always delighted to be here with you on the webinars here. And joining me today, we have a few special guests. So we have Dr. Alfiya Battalova, who's an assistant professor and the program head for the Bachelor of Arts in Justice Studies. Alfiya, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Fantastic. We also have Ken Foster, who's an associate faculty in the Bachelor of Arts in Justice Studies. Ken, thank you so much for being here as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we also have Eleanor Orser, who's a restorative justice coordinator and alumni of the program at the Ladysmith Resources Center Association. Eleanor, it's nice to see you again as well.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And folks, before we get started here, I do want to give an acknowledgement of our traditional lands. So at Royal Roads University, we acknowledge that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt First Nations. And of course, it's with gratitude that we live, learn, and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, staff, and faculty come together. So thank you so much. Grateful to be here with you all. And just a quick agenda before we jump into the discussion here. So we're going to do a brief overview of the Royal Roads University experience. I'll tell you all about it here. We're going to talk a little bit about the BA in Justice Studies program, and then we're going to have a conversation about the experience of that program. And then I will wrap us up, folks, with some admissions and how to apply information. And any questions, like I mentioned, feel free to pop them in the chat as we go along, and we can address them kind of throughout or at the end there. So if you have any things as we move along today. And I'll kick us off here with some Royal Roads information. Why would you consider Royal Roads? So I want to share with you some alumni statistics here from a recent alumni survey at Royal Roads University. 93% of our alumni say that Royal Roads has positively influenced their personal and professional lives. 92% say that they felt supported by staff and faculty. 90% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge required for a leadership role in the workplace. And 89% say that Royal Roads provided them with the tools and knowledge needed to be innovative in the workplace. As an alumni of Royal Roads myself, I can confirm these are all true. Those are some pretty good statistics we're quite proud of there. And I'll introduce you, if you are not familiar with our space, introduce you to some of the sites that you could expect if you're visiting campus. We have, of course, top left, you may have seen this building before. This is Hatley Castle. This has been a famous movie set that's been used throughout movies like X-Men and Deadpool. Lots of famous films have been filmed there, so you'll see that on campus. We also have a variety of gardens and green space, so you'll see just to the right of that, that's a photo of our Japanese garden, just one of many that we have here on campus. We also have a migratory bird sanctuary on campus, super beautiful by the water. That's our Esquimalt Lagoon there to the bottom left. And then the bottom right, we have, of course, our homage to online and blended learning. This is something that we've been doing for well over 25 years now, and we're quite proud of that at Royal Roads as well. So just some photos there for you. And of course, we are also pleased to be an Ashoka U certified Changemaker campus, which is an innovative approach to education that prepares students as they address world problems, encourage others, and act for the good of all. And at this point, I will pass it off to my marvelous co-host, Alfiya, who will take us through some program information. Take it away.
Thank you, Ariana, and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. So yeah, I just wanted to provide a bit of an overview of the program before we dive into a discussion, a conversation, a more informal discussion about the program. So just to give you an idea about the program itself, it was designed for individuals who are interested in different aspects of justice, in pursuing positive change. We have graduates who pursue law school after the program, go into public sector, nonprofit agencies, do a variety of things around dispute resolution, community development, policy analysis. So there's a range of things you can do with the degree. And it combines both very applied understanding of justice, but of course, we need to dive into some of the theory as well. So it's kind of the best of two worlds, a theory and practice. We integrate the Indigenous perspectives to justice, provide a global context through courses that focus on international law, for example. We look at the legal system as well. And if you consider the program, there are two different options in terms of the structure. So you can either pursue a one-year program, which combines year 3 and 4 of the undergrad in 1 year, which makes it for a very busy, intense program for sure. I just I gave an overview here of the courses that you'll be taking each term. So there are 5 courses each term. So again, lots of work, but you'll be done in 1 year. If you are currently working, if you cannot commit as much time at this point, that's fine as well. You can pursue the degree in a blended form. It will be delivered in 2 year during 2 years, and so you'll still have an opportunity to come to campus because we have something that's called a residency, where you come to campus for 3 weeks initially to get to know your cohort, because it's a cohort-based learning. So you'll be in the same group throughout the learning journey, and then you'll go back home after the 3 weeks. So during the 3 weeks, you will have 2 courses, very intense again time, but it'll give you an opportunity to really immerse yourself into the program, get to know your peers, and then you'll continue taking courses online. And then you will come back again 1 year later, and then sort of do similar thing where you will have 2 courses that you'll be taking at that time, and then finish the program from home. So there are different options based on, again, your preference, what works for you. And again, just a variety, something I've listed already, but a variety of skills that the program allows you to build and develop, around communication, professional practice, and again, apply to different areas. I'll probably ask more about that Eleanor and Ken, because they'll be able to talk in a much more applied, I guess, way about this. And again, this is an overview of 2 options, on campus and blended options. So, and we can definitely answer your questions about it if you want to know more how what each of the options look like. So that's okay. And I think at this point, I'll probably stop sharing the screen, and I'll invite our guests to join the conversation. I'm very happy to be joined today by Ken Foster, who is one of the instructors in the program, and Eleanor Orser, who is a graduate of the program. So I'll let both of you introduce yourselves. So maybe Eleanor, you go first.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for having me to Ariana and Alfiya. My name is Eleanor Orser, and I am the Restorative Justice Coordinator for the Ladysmith Resources Center Association. It's quite a name. It's a nonprofit working out of Ladysmith, which is on Vancouver Island. And I also am a caseworker, so facilitator and mentor with Restorative Justice Victoria, and a caseworker, facilitator, mentor for Restorative Justice Cowichan, as well as vice president of the board for Cowichan there. I graduated in about 2022, although there's some debate because I never remember. And Ken was my teacher, so I'll pass it over to Ken for an introduction.
I was Eleanor's instructor. That's my claim to fame right there.
That's it.
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you something, Eleanor, you might not know, but I've been doing stuff in the Justice Studies program since before I want to say. But one of the things that I sat on the board of governors for the Restorative Justice Victoria. So I helped write the mandate for what you guys use. I don't know if you still use it. That was like 20 years ago. But I've been involved in justice studies since before the 20s. and kind of covered a lot of different areas from civil law, criminal law. My background is multidisciplinary, so I have degrees in history and political science and criminology. So I kind of span a bunch of different areas, and Royal Roads is a multidisciplinary approach, which suits me just fine because my mind goes in like 10 different directions. So I kind of forgot what the question was. That's how my brain works. But yeah, it's I've been teaching here for 12 years now, and really enjoy it and really enjoy the classes that we offer. I wish this sort of thing had been available to me when I was an undergraduate. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Ken. Thank you for highlighting that. It's very interdisciplinary, and your, I think, diverse background really benefits and strengthens the program because, yeah, we bring in criminal justice, political science, philosophy, sociology, all kinds of areas into the program, and that's the reason for that is that because we explore justice from such different perspectives and lenses. So I guess we can start by maybe exploring a little bit the question around justice and what justice means for all of us. Maybe, Eleanor, you can reflect a little bit on whether your understanding of justice changed after the program. So I don't know, I can start. I think, for me, obviously, it's a very complex concept. If you ask a criminologist, they might talk about justice in looking at the system, at the root causes of crime, aims to prevent future criminal behavior. If you ask a philosopher what justice is, they might say that it's a central virtue in political thought. And so, but they will not have an agreement on how to achieve it. In my work, my background is in the area of sociology and health. So I look at justice from a health equity perspective. So how does access to health impact different people, and how do we address the injustices? And what's interesting about that for me is that oftentimes we might know what injustice is, right? So we might define the question about what justice is through defining what injustice is. So, because it's just easier for us to pinpoint it, to kind of identify what it is. But I think it's in that sense a great starting point for discussion and for conversations, and bringing in all this interdisciplinary perspectives is what I think makes this concept so interesting. So I let either Eleanor or Ken answer the question.
I'm interested in
Give
hear
them
what
a bit
Eleanor
of
has to
what.
say.
Oh, I was going to say, let's give them a taste of how you teach, Ken.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't want to throw you back into some sort of tizzy and go, oh my God, he's droning on again.
Yeah.
When I looked at this question, though, I will say, Alfiya, similar to you, I mean, this could be taken many different ways. I can tell you if you asked me, like in grad school, and I studied famous criminal trials as part of my thesis, is on, would have been this idea is that whoever's more powerful and whoever's victorious, that's how we define justice. And that gets passed on. I'm less cynical. Well, maybe I'm more cynical. I don't know. But I think that broader context that students look at is this idea of fairness or equality and whatever that looks like, defining those terms. But I think what I've grown to kind of accept is that if you asked a physician to define healthy, there is no one blanket answer. I think it is a nuanced approach. And if I'm teaching criminal law, the answer to that is different than civil law, or if we're looking at, international, right? And we try and put things in context to try and understand what justice is. I'm more interested in the journey and the process and the critical thinking that goes along with it. And as Eleanor knows, I like a good debate, good discussion about stuff. And to borrow a term from, there's a professor at Stanford University who used the term interrogation of ideas. And I like that as the university classroom being a safe place to kind of discuss any perspective, what you think is just and what is right, because we're not all going to agree. But I want us to be curious as to why we might disagree rather than accusatory that you don't see things my way, and a little more kind of tell me about that. Like, and Eleanor and I used to go rounds of, coming at things from different perspective, but I always thought anyway, there was a healthy respect for each other, in that sort of stuff. So that's, you know, the defining of justice, I think, is a personal thing. It's experiential, you can't divorce that from trying to understand what that term means. How was that, Eleanor?
I love that you referenced just our ongoing running in circles around each other. And I will say that, you know, I never made complaints about you. And I always sign my name to instructor feedback. So anything I said there was representative and always a good thing with Ken. Definitely one of the most entertaining lecturers in the program. For me, I think, you know what, this is a question I actually often struggle with, even at the beginning of the course. When I first had to write a paper about it, I just kind of like forced my way through it. And I guess where I've come to now is understanding that it's not a fixed outcome. It's something that I feel aspirationally towards. And also am aware that in order to achieve, you know, my version of justice, I have to continually work towards it, persevere in the face of adversity, and practice distress tolerance around when I'm confronted with opposing views, you know? And so I think through the program, I really learned that, and I got kind of closer to being able to hold multiple, sometimes conflicting, sometimes offensive viewpoints without necessarily personalizing them or internalizing them. And that's something that I have to do and apply in my work today. I think it's also important to just know, and this is, you know, Ken kind of brought this up by way of mentioning that whoever is sort of in a leadership position at the time gets to define that for us all. And so I think that it's also, justice isn't always evident in laws and policies. And in fact, lived experience now and history shows that legal systems often can uphold great injustices. So I think that, you know, for at least what I think of in my personal life and my professional life as being justice requires me to push against overwhelming odds, challenging status quos, and refusing to accept oppression as inevitable.
Great, thanks, Eleanor. Yeah. And I think both of you alluded to the idea of being okay with the discomfort that, you know, oftentimes there are these opposing views, but it's important for us to have space that we try to create at Railroads University to hold these discussions, because I think, especially nowadays, we don't have a lot of spaces where we can come together and discuss these ideas and work through them. Yeah, and we have a team-based learning model. So almost each of the courses will have a team assignment component, and I'm sure both of you can speak to that a little bit more. But the idea is, again, to be able to work as a team, but sometimes, you know, recognizing that it's not an easy process, right? You might not agree with each other. You might have to work through different schedules and all these other logistical challenges. But again, it's a learning as well. How do you come together and create something, even if there are ongoing tensions there? So yeah, so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about kind of the teaching and learning and the classroom experience as well. Ken, maybe you can, based on your experience teaching in the program, what are some of the things that you use in what is your teaching philosophy, I guess, when exploring some of these ideas? And I guess for you, Eleanor, you can speak from the student experience. What do you enjoy about these different styles of teaching? Ken.
Sure. Yeah, and I think, Alfiya, I'll echo what you had said earlier around the applied and the practical, because I try and have both of those in the classroom. Certainly around just course content, things like law or history, or criminology, things that we bring into the classroom from a theoretical perspective, which tend not to mean a whole lot unless you can apply them to the world around us. And I think that's kind of where the fun stuff comes in. And it took me a long time when I was teaching. I remember having a class, it was a French history class, because I remember my professor saying, what's more important when you're teaching, this is a teaching program I was in, that students remember the dates or the concepts. And I was like, well, obviously it's the dates. You need to know that 1789 was the French Revolution and these were the players, because I had come off doing a second degree in history, and that was what was important. And he kind of challenged me and said, well, what about the concepts of things like fraternity and equality and liberty that was the whole point of the revolution? And I went, oh, I had that conversation over 25 years ago. I remember that it was yesterday, because that was a really awakening moment for me, that I realized the way I want to teach is to introduce concepts that are flexible to any situation you're in. And not that I want to disparage doing justice studies at Royal Roads, I hope you do, but I hope at any university that you go to, you will get skills that you can apply to any job that you take in the world. Like, you don't lose that learning, whatever you decide to do. And then, if you study to be a lawyer and don't become a lawyer, that's okay. No one's taking those skills away from you. So for me, I always want learning to be engaging and fun. And so sometimes, as Eleanor will tell you, I will poke the bear a little bit to try and get some debate going, but I like doing things like mock trials and presentations and going after these theoretical or conceptual frameworks and offering them up to how things are in practice.
Yeah, and I attended one of Ken's classes recently, and there's a lot of engagement around specific case studies. People would break up into teams and work through them. Again, application, theory go kind of hand in hand for sure. So thanks, Ken. And yeah, that's a fascinating story. I have not heard about this.
Yeah, hopefully not to be repeated.
Yeah, hopefully not, but I love the enthusiasm for sure. Yeah. Eleanor, what about you? What is your experience?
Well, first of all, I think that's absolutely hilarious. I've definitely heard that story in the class before, I'm pretty sure. And I just want to say, you don't even have to do it, at that level. I was creatively tapped throughout our program. So when these great opportunities for creative kind of application came through, sometimes I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have the beans, I don't have the spoons for that. But I think one of the things that kind of came across to me is there's definitely, and I think Ken is one of those teachers who will showcase this, that there's a commitment to a bit of a Socratic method of engaging where, like, there's an opportunity to ask questions and have a bit of an argumentative dialogue. And it's, and it kind of, it can be edgy, it can be spicy at times. My cohort was such a mixed bag of people coming in with different ambitions. It had a different range of ages. I think every cohort's really different from my understanding, and so that can bring like a new flavor every time. We definitely had to have some cohort circles and talk through some issues at points, just because it does attract such a diverse cast of characters. I really came into the program because I was looking to advance my career. That was the thing that I really wanted out of, going through. When I left the program, I wanted to know that I'd have new opportunities. And I think it was actually you, Ken, when I was passing you on the staircase, probably on the last day of class, and I said, give me some advice, like what next? And you encouraged me to focus more on experience, and the money making will come in my 40s. And I can say that it hasn't taken quite that long to start seeing the resources pouring in, but it definitely it gave me an edge, the Justice Studies program. Um, I want to also add that a lot of the instructors are actually professionals. And so again, coming in with that career curiosity and what could happen next, that was really important to see me learning from all these instructors who are actually applying this in their lives, in their careers, or had recently, even if they were kind of on the cusp of retiring, they were still active in some way. So at the time we did a family law course, and that was taught by someone who was a counselor and a lawyer. Alternative dispute resolution, that is I think currently still taught by Carol Brown, who is an ADR practitioner and a lawyer, I believe. And then of course we have Ken, who although it's taking a step back, it sounds like, from his career in banking, was doing that. And I will say that, Ken, you humbled me recently without even being in my presence, because I was saying to a cohort friend of mine that I've kept ever since that I said, you know what, someday maybe I'll, do some teaching at Rural Roads. Maybe I'll take a class there someday. And then he kind of looked at me, he's like, remember how many degrees Ken had in order to do that? And I don't want to go back to school. Like it's not anywhere close to what I want to be doing in the next few years. So we were kind of laughing at that because it's something to aspire to, just like justice, just like justice. I think that for me as well, just like the practical applications really did prove valuable in my current life. Like I also am I'm not actually registered with the arbitration organization in British Columbia, but I am a trained arbitrator now, alternative dispute resolution arbitrator. So taking some of those class experiences led me down that road. And the other thing that I will add is there's no shortage of collaboration opportunities, even post-university. I currently am recruiting practicum students from the BAJS program. So, and my practicum led me to this exact position. So like I can really see that string of, okay, my practicum with one person, then he gave me 2 contracted opportunities after that. One of those contracted opportunities was in politics, which led me to a corporate job, not the best fit, left that corporate job and went back to my roots in restorative justice, and here I am, in a coordination position. So if you go into it really looking to milk it for all it's worth, because it's not, it's you're putting in your money, your time, your effort, your blood, sweat, and tears literally go into this program. And if you really kind of position yourself well in it, I think you can get a lot out of it even afterwards for years to come. Like I've done these webinars before. I'm coming to this career talks something or other event in February. There's a lot to take out of it if you just play your cards right. But just knowing that also you're going to be sapped for creativity at times. So you just have to pace yourself through it. But it was invaluable for my own career development for sure.
Thanks, Eleanor, for sharing that. And you mentioned the field study. So field study component is one of the options you will have to pursue. So you can either choose this option if you want a more of a practical application of the skills, or there's a research component, maybe if you want to consider going to law school, grad school, where you might want to build on some of the research skills. So that's an option as well. So yeah, thank you, Eleanor, for reminding us about that. And maybe Ken, in terms of some of the career paths that students choose in the program, what is your take on that? Like, what do students, is there a tendency for students to choose one professional path over the other?
Yeah, I would say if you asked me this question 10 years ago, it was a pretty even mix between people who thought they might want to go to law school or want to be police officers. Like, I could kind of, by a show of hands, who wants to do enforcement. Those were kind of the 2 big takeaways. Over time, that has definitely changed. I think we see a lot more people who are interested, as Eleanor mentioned, mediation has become very popular, which I think is a great option. But law school seems to have pushed out, I think, law enforcement. More people, I think, in the program. We'll put it this way, I write a lot more letters of recommendation for law school than I do for people going into policing. So that has been, in fact, I think there was a conversation we may have had 7 or 8 years ago to kind of say, we have to remember we're not pre-law. Like a lot of students think of it this way. And it's not that it's not that for some students, but there are other students in the program that it's not just about studying law. Although some of our courses, like a lot of the ones I do teach, do fall into that kind of range, whether it's civil or administrative law or criminal law that we might go through. But I actually see people kind of all over the place. I was mentioning, I just had someone rejoin the Army. I've had people going into different areas similar to Eleanor in restorative justice or social work is popular as well. I think most people kind of are drawn to that area of the world that deals with social services, social science, law, like that aspect of the world. And it's not small. So I think there's, like I said, I think you get a degree, you can kind of do a lot of different things with it. So choose something that you're interested in following. And as Eleanor said, it takes up a lot of your time. So be passionate about it, know what you want out of it. Eleanor was, I'm going to use a word that I'm probably not supposed to use. Eleanor was one of our older students. And I say that because she wasn't 18, right? Or she wasn't 20. I really like that. And I'll tell you why I like that is the older the student gets, the more they demand to be taught and get something out of their education. They're not just there to collect a piece of paper and move on, whether they learn anything or not. And I want to teach people who want to learn and want to grow. I mean, one of the highlights for me is seeing students like Eleanor. I think you would admit you were a different student at the beginning of the program than when you ended. And I think that's a great journey to go on. And it's what, to me, as universities get talked more and more about, is it worth the money to attend? And I've got 2 kids of my own that I have to ask these questions, but I still think that there's not another place in our society yet that allows you to have, discussions or discourse at a civil level that allows you to grow and discuss things that we might not otherwise discuss. And so if it leads to a job, I hope it does. But to me, actually, that is not the most important thing. I think it's that skill set you take with you, and you can apply that to any job or just to yourself as, a person who has critical thinking skills, which, by the way, are more important now than they were 20, 30 years ago. Like, we get bombarded with information all the time that is seemingly contradictory, and it might be, and having the tools to discern what, we should believe in and what is white noise is becoming increasingly difficult.
Yeah, and thinking critically about what evidence is. As I had this conversation with someone recently too. What is evidence? How do we opinion, evidence? How do we discern between these concepts as well? Yeah, thank you. Anything else you would like to highlight about the program before we sort of go into more discussions about the deadlines and other questions?
I'll say one thing without despairing other universities, but I will tell you, my son is currently in his first year. One of my sons at a different university. Class size is a big thing. When I was teaching, the magical number at that time, the research said, was 17 people in a class. And it was very rare to teach a class of 17 people. But that's a far cry from 300, which is what I experienced. And I just want to impress how I think it's important to be able to have discussions one-on-one with your instructor, not just around the content, but maybe around assignments. My son recently got a paper that was marked intuitively, whatever that means. No rubric, no feedback, just this felt like this number, which I didn't know still existed as a way of marking things. So I think as a student, you want accountability from your professors. I think Royal Roads offers that. And I think there's a personal connection that we have with our students that you simply don't get at larger institutions.
Thank you, Ken.
I would definitely agree with that in terms of class size and and like I said, that can pose challenges when it comes to actually applying like conflict management techniques to working through team assignments and group dynamics. And I've even thought about there's something in me eventually that wants to write about the formation of group dynamics and it's othering, how it harnesses othering to actually like support building community in cohorts in particular. I also want to add that when I came into the program, I had a view of which classes I would really enjoy, and sometimes your professors can make or break it. Like administrative law that Ken taught me at the time, I had no idea, not really an interest. It didn't pique my interest, and then going in because of his style and the way that he delivered the content, it's one of the courses that I'm the most interested in. I spent the most time on assignments, although my grades might not have always reflect that. And I think the other thing I want to add is that I still have some really stark memories, like Ken, you mentioned at the beginning of this talk, remembering this conversation from 25 years ago. Now, as old as I am, I've only been out of the program for 3 years, and I still have some really key memories that help me be a better critical thinker when I'm looking at current events. And I can actually start to like cut through some of the noise and know where to find explanations for certain concepts, right? And understand the impact that they have. So I'd say especially around policy, which was a really kind of foreign idea to me. And now I chair the policy committee on the board and I'm writing all these policies for this restorative justice organization. Like there continue to be genuine and real world applications. And since I know we're going to lose at least one person, I am just going to add that I'll drop my LinkedIn profile in the chat in case anyone wants to connect more after this.
Thank you, Eleanor. Great. All right. Well, I guess I'll turn it back to you, Ariana.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everybody. That was a great, great discussion. So thank you all for sharing your perspective. I'm just going to go ahead and share the slides again, just so we can see. Hopefully we can all see that. So if you have any questions, like I mentioned at the start, please, I know we are, losing one participant. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I'll leave some emails and things at the end if you want to connect with us. But if you have any questions for the moment, please feel free to type them in the chat. And I'll just roll through a few other slides as we kind of wrap up. And if you don't have any questions right now, that's all good as well. If you are thinking about joining us in the program sometime soon, I'll just give us a few details on how to apply. So at Royal Roads, we have two avenues of admission. We have standard admissions and flexible admissions. I'll just highlight both real quick. So standard admissions looks like to get into this program, a relevant 2-year diploma or 60 credits with a minimum of 24 second-year credits with a GPA of a B. We also have block transfer agreements. That's all listed on our website. So we have a tab for transfer agreements. So if you do have a diploma, you're wondering, can it transfer into the program? That's all laid out nicely on our website rather. So you can check that out. Flexible admissions, thanks Eleanor for popping that in the chat. I got into the course through flexible admissions. It's fantastic. One of my favorite things to talk about at Royal Roads. So flexible admissions, it really allows folks that maybe don't meet those standard admissions requirements to come into the program. We realize that there are so many rich experiences, so much good stuff that comes through your work experience, volunteering, different things like that. So flexible admissions looks like at least 5 years of relevant work experience in an area related to justice, combination of academic achievement and work experience, or an ability to demonstrate the competencies expected of a graduate with a relevant 2-year diploma. So I'll also say this is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So it's not something when you apply, you choose standard or flexible. This is just something that offers another avenue, like I said, to kind of come into the program. So this is all adjudicated by our wonderful admissions advisors when you apply to the program. Another thing to consider, English, it is the primary language of instruction and communication at Royal Roads. If your primary language is not English, there are several ways that you can still meet this language requirement. So certainly holding a recognized credential from an English-speaking country, submitting an English language proficiency test score report, and all of the scores for that are on our website as well, or you can complete one of our Global Learning and Language Center programs. You'll see the link for that, just admission, English language requirements there. So all on royalroads.ca. And then some transfer agreements as well. As I mentioned before, there are certain ones on our website that you can kind of check out which ones, if you've attended a college, which ones you may qualify for. How to apply? We have a few different steps here. So there's an online application fee of $136.69, and then some supporting documents. So things like official transcripts, detailed resume, personal statement. What that is almost like if you were applying to a job, a bit like your cover letter. So really detailing what you would like to get out of the program, what you hope to bring to the program. Again, full instructions, royalroads.ca. I keep repeating that, but all the things are on our website. 2 letters of reference as well. Those can either be academic or professional in nature. And then, as I mentioned, those English language requirements as well. So some key dates, if you are thinking of joining us in the program, there is blended and on-campus versions. So blended, the date that's coming up is August 25th, 2025. As we're now almost in February, that will come up kind of before we know it. Application deadline is in May. And then on campus, the date is September 2nd, 2025, application deadline in June. So if you are thinking of applying, it's a great time to apply, and those are kind of assessed on a rolling basis. some services that are available to you. So of course, we realize at Rural Roads, any university, going back to school, this is a really big step, right? So we do like to offer some services in terms of financial aid and award, where you can explore financial resources that are available in terms of things like loans, bursaries, scholarships, emergency funding, other funding, all nicely laid out at ruralroads.ca. And then I have our wonderful enrollment advisor, Andrea Boyce, who's I see in the chat. Thank you so much, Andrea, for a little wave. That's so nice. For answering some of our questions here. Enrollment services, they can be reached at learn.more@ruralroads.ca. So want to highlight, if you have any questions or things that you need, you can contact them there, or there's some phone numbers there for local and then toll-free for North America on the screen if you want to give them a call. And they can, again, help you narrow down different program options. They can answer questions about your application, or connect you with students and alumni, so you can learn more about the program, which is fantastic. And at this point, folks, I will say thank you so much for tuning in with us today. I just want to check to see in the chat, because I know there have been a little some questions here. So let me just scan here. I see, yeah, thank you, Andrea, for noting those things in the chat. That's fantastic.
There's a question from Morgan. I've heard some students from Camosun say that the Railroads Justice Studies program is not always accepted by certain institutions after grad. Is this true? I haven't heard that before. Eleanor, you wanna?
Yeah, and I think this is this might be helpful context, and I don't think I'm throwing this program under the bus by saying this, but I'm going to tell people what my experience with this is.
Okay.
So I got in on flexible admissions. I had done 3 semesters at Camosun prior to that, and otherwise got in through, you know, my prowess as a worker. Um, One thing that I have noticed, and this might be what Morgan's talking about, and so you do have to be mindful when you're coming into the program through flexible admissions, is that some post-grad programs, like for example, I've been looking at a master's in clinical counseling or counseling psychology. Some of those programs, they want a 4-year certain amount of credits undergrad in order to get into the program. And so I actually don't qualify for that program because I only did a few, you know, a couple semesters with full class loads, but and then came in and got my full, you know, 2 years worth of experience condensed into 11 months. That might be what people are talking about. So it's something to be mindful of if you're coming in through flexible admissions, for sure. I don't know. I hope that wasn't throwing Rural Roads under the bus by any means. I think it's just my experience that might help contextualize why that might kind of be circulating out there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Eleanor. There is one more question here. I will just read out here if anybody wants to answer this regarding online learning. I see the expectation per course is 20 hours a week. And in viewing the class schedule, it looks like there's course overlap. So in the weeks of overlap, would that mean to expect 40 hours a week?
I wouldn't say that it's just simply doubling the amount of hours. It certainly will depend on the kind of courses you'll be taking at the time. Yeah, I don't think I haven't heard that. I heard that it's definitely like a time crunch for many students at that time. But I think it will depend on the workload and the kind of courses you'll be taking. So I don't know, Eleanor, if you want to say anything about that.
I'm not really honestly didn't really follow the question that much, but I will say in terms of my on-campus experience, I never felt like my course load was particularly imbalanced. There are always crunch times as with every university, but for my actual experience, it's not really definable in terms of which courses require 20 hours every week kind of thing. And as Ken said, like I remember I asked Ken very cheekily at the beginning of my very first course with him, I asked, do I actually have to do all these readings? And he said, well, you're going to get out of the program what you put into the program, was kind of like the takeaway answer. And so that is, I think, I think will change, you know, if you're going in and you're going to do all the readings and you really want to get the most from it, then you're going to put in more time. But if you're going to kind of coast through certain courses, if you're going to coast through certain assignments, then you're not going to get as much out of it. You're not going to get what I got, which was a really in-depth experience that has really impacted my career long term, you know? So, although I didn't fully understand the question, I hope that helps, that really you're gonna get in when you take out, and it's not really definable across the board. It's all very different.
I, I'll speak to this because I teach online as well, and I taught at Camosun. I taught in the justice program there. I don't think that this is going to be more work. How do I say this? I don't know that I had many students who put 20 hours a week into their stuff. Now, if you have an assignment that week and you're doing, so one of the classes that probably demands a lot is my 315 class that Eleanor was talking about, civil and administrative law, because we debate case law, and case law is not an easy read. Sometimes there's a lot to them. Having said that, there's no way you would spend 20 hours doing that unless you also had an assignment the same week. And that class in particular only has 3 assignments throughout the 9 weeks. So I would never foresee a 40-hour week for 2 classes where there's some overlap. But yeah, you do have to make choices. And you know, I've been teaching online now for a decade, and the only time I've ever heard complaints about time is if there's too much made due at the same time with something, which we can control for, you know, with a little bit of foresight. Or if somebody has a full-time job and they have kids, which is understandable. I mean, adding anything to that is going to cause, you know, a lot of stress. But as I said, with the small classes, you talk to your professor and exceptions can be made. We're not expecting anyone to be superhuman about stuff, but so if you're concerned about workload, I would say, in my experience, that has not been really an issue for students overall. In fact, I found the course load at Camosun to be just as heavy in terms of, I mean, I was teaching every day, and you know, there's a lot more in-class time at Camosun than you would have certainly online. You don't have I record lectures that people can watch, but it's different than having to go to campus.
Yeah, and to your question, Morgan, about the preference, the on-campus versus blended, it will depend on your circumstances for sure. I think, yes, we do have more students in the blended program, but that's mostly because we have students from all over the country. And so it just geographically for many people, it just works better. But yeah, it will kind of depend on you, on your preference, your timeline as well. So yeah. And thank you, Eleanor, for sharing some of the tools. I think that's super helpful as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I don't think we have any other questions in the chat. I believe we got them all. So I just wanted to say this moment to say thank you so much to you, Alfiya, Eleanor, Ken. We really appreciate your time and facilitation for this webinar. Folks, again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Just learn more at ruralroads.ca. And Eleanor, I know you popped your LinkedIn there in the chat. I'll toss all of this in my follow-up as well, so folks that have registered that can't make it live can also have this information. And thanks, Alfiya, yeah, for your email in the chat. That's great. Yeah, so thank you so much, everybody. We will log off now, and then I wish you a great rest of the day. Of course, we hope to see you in another webinar next time and in the program soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.